Hi, folks. Hope you're okay today. It's good to be with you and love to everybody out there. My website is jasonburnspreacher.com, jasonburnspreacher.com, jasonburnspreacher.com. I just want to talk about evolution and just expose a few issues concerning evolution. Number one, the mechanism. If you read the works and look at the works of Richard Dawkins and do some scholarly work and just look at his works, you will find that this issue of the mechanism of evolution has not been dealt with adequately by him. And there is a lot of equivocation and there's a lot of semantic dancing around and twisting under a pseudoscience that is not actually scientific, is not actually accurate, and not actually philosophically or scientific cogent. And what am I talking about? What happens with the evolutionist is this. They say that evolution is true, and they will say to you that you can see you can see animals changing today. You can see rabbits getting bigger. You can see moths changing. You can see things, and then they jump from what they can see and say, well, this has happened over billions of years. And there's a total equivocation there, a total dishonesty, a total lack of intellectual integrity. And a lot of philosophers and scientists need to be called out and the lack of intellectual ability to think critically at this point. Now, what happens is the evolutionist and the atheist and all the rest of it, who pride themselves on their great intellects, will throw out the cackle like this and say, oh, no, no, you don't understand evolution. That's an ad hominem. Oh, you don't understand the actual process of evolution, which is condescending. And, well, nobody actually believes what you're actually saying concerning this issue in terms of what you're about to say. We know what you're about to say, so let's say it. Macro and microevolution are not the same. Oh, now you're all getting excited and all laughing and all saying he doesn't understand. But what you're doing is showing how intellectually dishonest and disgraceful you are. And you philosophers and scientists out there are absolutely disgraceful if you are suppressing the truth at this point. I challenge you as a philosopher, I challenge you as a scientist to think critically on this point. It is not demonstrable to demonstrate macroevolution in time. And you know that. Even Meyer, I think his name was, great evolutionist who died a few years ago, said that evolution is a historical science. It's about looking back in time. And what you tend to do is use what you can see on a micro level of evolution. A rabbit changing or a moth changing on the micro level, and then make an assumption that on the micro there is going to be a macro going back millions of years. And that is the logical conclusion that you have made. That is not logical, it is illogical. It is totally illogical. It lacks any verification whatsoever. And even Karl Popper, who said evolution cannot be verified, and somebody has recently pointed out that Karl Popper retracted that. But even when you read his so-called retraction, which has not been intellectually, honestly studied in detail, but if you study his retraction in detail, the point that he made, he doesn't actually deal. The point that he said cannot be verified about evolution, he never actually dealt with it when he was so-called retracted. He left it in the air because it cannot be demonstrated on a macro level. And this is the total intellectual dishonesty of evolutionists. The total intellectual dishonesty of many philosophers and scientists at the moment who are not thinking critically on this topic. Think critically. If you don't believe me as a scientist or philosopher or anybody who's interested in decent academic scholarship, go and read some of Dawkins' books on evolution. the greatest show on earth or something like that, whatever it was, it came out a couple of years ago. Go read that book. Go and read it. And when you read it, he says a couple of important things in there. Number one, he says, I have not demonstrated the process of evolution and I feel I need to do it now. Well, he's had years and years of polemics for evolution, and yet it was only in his latter years that he thought the need to actually defend and give arguments for the process of evolution. That's the first point. If evolution was so cogent and so correct, why didn't he offer a book or something that would defend it before? That shows you the intellectual paucity and dishonesty and lack of vigorous thinking and scholarship with these evolutionists. Second point, he shows cabbages changing in the book. He shows cows changing, and therefore he jumps from there. He jumped from there to saying that it can happen millions of years. Again, an absolute illogical conclusion. But most importantly in his work and in his book, and I've noticed this with these evolutionists, he invents words. He talks about science is about verification, and it's about testing in time. He talks about this, that you have a conjecture, you do your experiments and you test it and you come to some conclusion in time about a particular subject that you want to verify. Then he says it's not exactly the same with evolution, i.e. macroevolution. So he invents a word to tinker with the scientific process in order to say, but even though it's different, it's half and half. We can verify it, but we can't verify it. And so he invents terms. Absolute nonsense. I can give you the specifics. I have the page numbers and references here in my notes if you wanted that. I'll do that in another video. I'll give you the specific references. In fact, if you just wait a second, I will give you the references. If we've got them. I've got the notes upstairs. I'll give you the notes sometime. I'll post the notes later on in the week under the video. The exact reference to the making up of words. I'll put that under the video. So, my first point is this. Don't call it scholarship when you're inventing words. When you're twisting and equivocating on the topic. Now, the evolutionist, the internet brigade with the internet scholarship will say this. They'll say nowhere in the field do they talk about macro and micro. It's just an invention of creationists. This is a bare-faced lie. A total bare-faced lie. Absolute, total bare-faced lie. It's not true. It's not true. In the academic field, there is a reference to macroevolution and microevolution. So it's a bare-faced lie for the internet brigade on the internet to say that isn't the case. Again, absolute dishonesty on the internet. Absolute dishonesty going on concerning this. So my first point is the process of evolution. It cannot be verified in time. And scholars like Dawkins will try to invent words where they try to muddy the waters, and they actually are equivocating, talking about one subject and then thinking that it's the same as the other subject when it isn't. It's a completely different subject. In other words, they're talking about he's saying microevolution is macroevolution. And it's a total equivocation and a lack of honesty, because it's two different subjects, two different processes, and it needs to be called out for what it is. Take care.